What you're about to see is not a Bible study. It's a blueprint. The June 2026 Watchtower just dropped, and buried inside its pages is something the leadership would never explain out loud. A single photograph on the cover, a grandmother wearing pants, is doing more psychological heavy lifting than any doctrinal change in the last decade. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why that image was chosen, who it was designed to silence, and what it reveals about an organization that is no longer changing because of the Bible, but because its members already changed first. Stay with me. The real story starts in paragraph 13. Part 1. The Grandmother Anchor. Let's start with the cover. Two women walking side by side after a meeting. One is younger, wearing a long skirt and a modest sweater. The other is older, gray hair, blazer, carrying a Bible, and she is wearing pants. For decades, women who wore pants to Kingdom Hall meetings or out in field service were treated as spiritually weak, rebellious, or worldly. Elders gave talks discouraging it. Sisters were pulled aside and counseled. In some congregations, a woman in trousers might as well have walked in wearing a protest sign. And now, with no apology, no explanation, no acknowledgement that this was ever an issue, the Watchtower publishes a cover image that normalizes it overnight. But here is the detail that matters most. They did not put a 20-year-old woman in those pants. They chose a grandmother. This is a textbook anchoring technique. In social psychology, the anchor is the reference point that shapes how everyone else responds. The elderly woman in a high-control religious group is the symbol of tradition, the pillar of compliance. She is the person who endured the old rules the longest, who sacrificed the most to uphold them. When she appears on the cover wearing pants and smiling, carrying her Bible, looking spiritually strong, the message to every other member is devastating in its simplicity. If the grandmother accepts this, you have no right to complain. No debate is necessary. No vote was taken. The organization simply moved the anchor, and the congregation is expected to follow in silence. Part 2. The Illusion of Choice. Now look at the men in the same photograph. One has a beard and wears a tie. Another is clean-shaven in a more casual outfit. The styles are deliberately mixed. This is not an accident. This is what behavioral economists call a controlled choice architecture. The organization is presenting two pre-approved options: beard with formal attire or no beard with relaxed clothing. And by doing so, they eliminate the possibility that any member will invent a third option: no long hair, no visible tattoos, no truly casual style. The member looks at the image and feels a sense of freedom. Finally, they can choose. But the choice is between door number 1 and door number 2 in a building they're not allowed to leave. This is how high-control groups evolve without losing control. They expand the fence just enough to stop people from climbing over it. The member who was about to leave over the beard issue now stays, grateful for a freedom that was never theirs to begin with. And that is the real purpose of every so-called relaxation in Watchtower policy. It is not liberation, it is pressure management. Part 3. The Inoculation Engine. Now open the magazine to page 5, paragraph 13. This is where the engineering becomes unmistakable. The article asks, in plain text, what a witness should do if they begin to doubt whether Jehovah's Witnesses are truly God's people. Read that again. The organization is putting the doubt into the member's mind, deliberately. This is a technique called psychological inoculation, and it has been studied extensively since the 1960s. The principle is simple. You expose someone to a weakened version of a threatening idea, and then you immediately provide the rebuttal. The member's brain processes the doubt in a controlled environment, surrounded by the organization's framing, and files the rebuttal as the automatic response. So when that same member later encounters the doubt in an uncontrolled environment, on Reddit, on YouTube, in a conversation with a former witness, their brain does not engage with the new information. It simply retrieves the pre-installed answer. Paragraph 13 does not stop at raising the doubt. It immediately redirects the member to ask 3 specific questions. Who is living according to the Bible? Who bases their beliefs on Scripture? Who is doing Jehovah's will? These questions are not open inquiries. They are rhetorical loops that always return to one answer: us. The member who follows this thought exercise never actually processes the doubt. They process the antidote and mistake it for thinking. Part 4. Branding. God. Paragraph 15 introduces another layer. The article declares that Jehovah's Witnesses have the privilege of bearing God's name and emphasizes that the divine name appears over 7,000 times in their own translation of the Bible. This is not theology. This is branding. In a religious marketplace where Christianity is increasingly generic, the Watchtower has identified its unique selling proposition. They own the name. They own the translation. They own the exclusive claim to a divine identity that no competitor can replicate. The member is not loyal to God in the abstract. The member is loyal to the brand that holds the trademark on God's name. And once you understand that distinction, you understand why leaving is so psychologically devastating. The ex-witness does not just lose a church. They lose the only version of God they were ever allowed to know. Part 5. The blind spot they will never mention. Paragraph 14 makes a bold statistical claim. The article states that Jehovah's Witnesses preach in more than 240 countries and territories, and that this global work is the fulfillment of Matthew 24:14. This number is repeated constantly in Watchtower literature. It is designed to make members feel like they are part of something uniquely global, uniquely effective, uniquely chosen, but there is a number they will never print beside it. China, India, vast regions of the Middle East and North Africa. The largest human populations on the planet remain effectively untouched by Watchtower preaching. Meanwhile, the Catholic Church, the Latter-day Saints, and several evangelical movements have built durable, if sometimes underground, networks in these same territories under severe persecution. If worldwide preaching is the proof of divine backing, then the organization's absence from the world's most populated nations is not just a gap. It is a theological problem they cannot afford to discuss. So they don't. They give you 240, and they trust that you will never ask what percentage of the human race that actually reaches. This is a textbook information silo, a carefully curated set of statistics designed to make the inside feel like the whole world. The loyalty trap. The first article in this issue, the one that frames the entire magazine, is titled, "How to Stay Loyal Despite Challenges." It opens with the story of Jesus in Capernaum when many disciples left him after a difficult teaching. Peter stayed and said, "Lord, to whom shall we go?" This verse is the emotional spine of the entire article, and it reveals the deepest mechanism of all. The organization is not asking members to stay because the teachings are true. It is asking them to stay because there is nowhere else to go. This is not faith. This is dependency. The article lists the tests that a witness might face: doctrinal adjustments, changes in preaching methods, personal suffering, being hurt by a fellow believer, receiving direction from the organization that they do not understand. Notice what this list does. It preemptively classifies every possible reason for leaving as a test of loyalty. If the doctrine changes and you are confused, that is a test. If an elder treats you unjustly, that is a test. If the organization gives you instructions that make no sense, that is a test. There is no category in which the organization itself is wrong. Every failure is reframed as your failure to endure. Think about what this means for someone who is sitting in a kingdom hall right now, hurting. They have been told that their pain is a test. They have been told that the confusion they feel about a policy reversal is a test. They have been told that the elder who humiliated them was simply imperfect, and their inability to move on is the real problem. Every road that leads out has been relabeled as a road that leads to spiritual death. The member does not stay because they believe. They stay because they have been taught that the act of leaving, for any reason, under any circumstance, is the one unforgivable failure. And that is the final function of this magazine: not to inform, not to educate, not to help someone grow closer to God, but to seal every exit and call it love. What we are looking at in this June 2026 Watchtower is not a theological shift. It is an administrative recalibration. The grandma in pants is not evidence that the organization is becoming more progressive. It is evidence that the members already changed, and the leadership had to run to catch up before it lost them entirely. The inoculation in paragraph 13 is not pastoral care. It is a firewall against independent thought. The branding of the divine name is not worship. It is market differentiation, and the loyalty framework built around Peter's words is not encouragement. It is a cage with a Bible verse on the door. The question every witness should be asking right now is not, "Where else would I go?" The question is, if what was a sin yesterday is freedom today, who is actually making the rules? The scriptures or the Department of Member Retention? If this analysis opened your eyes, share it with one person who is still inside. Not to attack them, not to argue, just to plant a seed. Subscribe to this channel for more investigations into the mechanisms behind the messaging. And remember, thinking for yourself was never the sin they told you it was.